Hello, everyone. I'm Jean-Claude BeyondMystic, and welcome to this edition of the Wacky Woo. With me tonight, of course, is the Mr. Big Sweer from roadtoruta.com. You can find Penny Kelly also here at pennykelly.com. And finally, my buddy, travel adventurer extraordinaire, JSNIP4 at Realist News 2 here on YouTube and also on Patreon. Fellas, ladies, how are you tonight?
Good.
Good, feeling good.
Pretty good, all things considered.
I apologize, everyone. We're a little bit late. We're having some technical issues with the microphone getting started, but we're here. And yes, it's going to be absolutely wacky. Yes, it's a wacky show here tonight. Where do we start, Joe? I mean, I guess the news of the week is this very, like, there's a lot, okay? But this one here, I mean, I think takes the cake. I think it's at 30 million views already. On Twitter. We're already seeing the censorship on Facebook, YouTube, and other places. So watch our languages around here. But what do you make of this here, Joe? Just a couple of weeks ago, Cliff was picking up something, and he had, I guess, the last reporting on his webbot saying that we were 3, 4, maybe max 4 weeks away from this whole narrative crashing, including the mandates themselves. We saw last week the CEO of Pfizer do the walk of shame in Davos, which was extraordinary, 3 or 4 million hits on Rebel News here in Canada. But now this, I mean, this really takes the cake. Watch your language. But Joe, how does that all fit in? Are we on that timeline to perhaps maybe days away, weeks away from this whole thing finally coming to a dead halt? What do you think?
I mean, it sure feels like it. You know, I wish I knew timing, because every time we think we know something about timing, it's like wrong.
Yeah.
Kick the can, move the goalpost. It's like we know what's happening, but we just can't give a time because we don't have a time, and they're not going to give us the time. It happens when they, good guys, if you will, say, okay, it's time for whatever the next, thing is. But I mean, for that guy to just give that information out on I guess it was a gay date. Is that correct? Right?
Yeah, it's apparently his third date. So the guy took his time to reel him in and eventually set him up here for everything that he's saying here. And it's funny to watch because at a few parts in this particular video, if you watch the whole thing, he's like, "Oh, there's organizations that trap people, so I'm weary when people ask me too many questions and blah blah blah." But don't say I told you, okay? So I'm like, "Oh my god."
My initial call it gut, but I feel like maybe it was a little downloaded, maybe, was that guy is saying what he was supposed to say, and he knew what it was about and essentially what was going to happen.
Wow.
He's just playing a little actor role, and in my opinion, of the freak out, and I'm going to slam the thing down, and all this nonsense. I was like, you already know it's on, like, you already know it's saved. The guy's got millions of backups. Like, what are you doing grabbing that? It's just stupid. Just an overreaction. So, but the point is, it came out. The information came out.
Yep.
And it leads to what Rand Paul has been screaming about Dr. Fauci, which is gain of function type of research.
Mm-hmm.
And think about if you're that guy giving the interview. It wasn't an interview, the undercover footage. Your third date or whatever. That's one of those topics, at your company, you are never going to speak to some other person about, much less a guy date you just met 3 dates ago. You're not revealing that because you know how it's illegal, essentially.
Well, technically, he says in the video, well, we're not doing that. We're doing directed evolution. It's not the same thing if you don't
just change the name.
thing.
Change the what you call it. A frog is a frog is a frog. But yeah, so you see this happening. It's all timed, right? It's all happening at the end of the month. We had Entheos back, November and December. Wait till January. Just didn't say what it meant again. So we've seen a lot of stuff happen in January. I mean, there's even more information that wasn't available about the Arizona election. About those. Remember all those 230,000 something, 300,000 votes that didn't get. Not only did they not get counted, they were brought somewhere. No one knows if they ever got counted now, is what they're saying. Like, okay, the machines wouldn't do it. They're supposed to put them here and then truck them to this other place, which was illegal because of chain of custody. But now we're finding out that they don't even think that any of those votes ever got counted. Period.
Dude, so, there's that and all the declassified or the classified documents of the Biden.
Right, you got the Biden thing. Again, how many times have we done these videos? And we're over the last 2 years, and it's like, wow, every single thing they've done to Trump or he did some minor little tiny thing. Oh my God, he's not fit to be president. He almost tripped. Yeah. Biden has to run up like he's in fit shape up the stairs, and he trips not once, not twice, 3 times, full knee down. Like, just to show you everything you guys clowned on Trump about, this guy's going to do 10 times worse.
I know.
So they got Trump on this declassified document stuff, and he says, well, I'm the president, I'm allowed to have declassified stuff. It was in a secure location. Everything was fine. I followed the rules. And then DOJ, what'd you find? What'd you find? Drum roll. Yeah, I didn't find Whirlingworm. Another
nothing burger.
Garbage nothing burger. So what's the chances that not too long after that, Biden's got a declassified document problem? And what's this? Mike Pence, I found something too. What's that about? Again, it's all part of this TV show. None of us could predict this kind of a thing. No. But it's just showing us everything they've done to Trump or said Trump, they're doing. So, I mean, you could almost, I've got my magic 8 ball down here. I could ask the magic 8 ball easily. It would say yes. Are they setting Hunter and Joe Biden up for the removal of Joe Biden based on these documents, which will tie Hunter in, which will tie Ukraine and China and this and that? And oh my God, I'll do, the big guy, everything. It's all right there in declassified documents. Not declassified, classified documents the vice president wasn't even supposed to have.
Yeah.
And we found 6 more. And we got some extra. It's just, and like I said, enjoy the show because everything's gonna blow. Why right now did Nancy Pelosi's husband video get released? Like, who pulled that trigger?
Oh wait, you're going too fast, Joe.
Yeah, it's all happening right now.
We'll get to that in a second. First, somebody says, "Hey, pay me my silver now." I wanted to ask Bix also. Do you think that Pfizer thing takes the cake in terms of the month of January? We're the 27 here today. Are you looking at perhaps the news coming out of the Mints, the COMEX? Like, what do you think is maybe framing the month of January in terms of the setup for what's about to happen here, perhaps in the late February or March? As per the WebBot data here, we're having some big emotional spikes just around the corner. What frames January for you, Bix?
I think the biggest thing is the U.S. putting tanks in Europe and Russia saying, don't do it or we're going to lob nukes onto you. I mean, that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
Because the uranium tipped, or what do they call
uranium
it?
Tipped,
depleted uranium.
Depleted, yeah.
But I mean, to me, it gets back to what Snippy remember John Teeter. John Teeter said, hey, the World War III is ended when Russia lobs, 4 nuclear bombs on U.S. cities. And I mean, we are like walking down that path. I thought we had, obviously his timing is off, but so many things have happened that it is not by far out of the question that we get a few nukes lobbed right on us. And maybe it is that the good guys can't close the deal. I mean, it's funny when we talk about timing. I first thought this thing would blow. I was sure it was going to blow in December of 1999 when I first got into silver. And I was like, oh my God, this is so obvious. And here we are, 24 years later, and it still feels like we're right there. I mean, we were so close in 2008. With that crash, we were half an hour away from the monetary system. When the monetary system goes, it's over. Because you can't pay the bad guys. You can't pay the good guys. Everybody will be angry at their government and their bankers. And that's the biggest thing I think everybody should be watching for is who trusts who. And when nobody trusts anybody, what kind of monetary system can we go to after the big banks crash?
Exactly.
I mean, we can go back to gold and silver, and I think cryptos for the people would be great, but you're still going to maybe fight the government. If Dick Allgaier is correct, we won't have a government, which would be great, in my opinion.
We'll get to that a little bit later in the segment, but Bix, I wanted to bring this up. I talked about this video yesterday, I think, when we recorded the Beyond Crypto Woo for the month, and this seems to be all coming together here. You've postulated over the year that perhaps the Mint was throttling back production in terms of public view or public-facing announcements, but that they were running full tilt and perhaps hoarding here for a new system. And in this video, you said, hey, why are they smiling? Are they ready here for a new system? Explain that quickly here for the audience members. What did you mean by all this?
Well, this was back in, I think, 2008 that picture was taken, that they did this big rebuild of the old San Francisco Mint.
Right.
And they put in these CNC minting machines, the computer controlled minting machines. And they're like, ready to do it, ready to make it, all these silver eagles and everything. Since we were on the woo-woo, I think both Pelosi and Feinstein are no longer with us. I think they've been gone a long time, and either a soul swap out or something, but they turned so evil in the past 15 years because they were both fighting for, at least when they were opening up the mint, this mint was beautiful, and they had a little museum about what money is and gold and all this stuff. And then 2008 hits and everything, after they bailed out the banks, everything got put on hold. We had our shot there. We were half an hour away for everything melting down, and we didn't pull the trigger. So it pisses me off. I think we'd pull the trigger this time. I don't think Congress can agree on what toilet paper they put in the stalls, much less to bail out the banks. So I think we're in better shape now, but it could go on for another 20 years. Who knows?
Oh, okay, but hold on for that. People can go watch your latest videos here on Road to Ruin on YouTube, but
no, they can't.
No, that's true. I'll get to your Rumble station in a second. You're right. I've been watching you on Rumble for the last couple of days. I'll bring it up in a second here for the audience members. But how close are we, or do you think, what would be the percentage here of maybe the introduction of those silver coins with the notch in them? What's your thought on that? Are we close to that? Is that even feasible? Well, how close to reality is that right now?
I mean, what I said before is, I've just been so tainted over 24 years of doing this. But you look at they're specifically changing the gold and silver eagles so they can put identifiers on the bottom of the coins. You got a U.S. Mint that is saying they're increasing production of silver eagles, and yet they can only do a third of production last year. It's like, okay, if they're putting all these new machines in and making all these coins, where did the coins go? And everybody has to remember there's a big difference between Federal Reserve notes, money at your bank, and U.S. coinage. U.S. minted coinage is the money of the United States of America, still on the books. Everything else, Federal Reserve notes and derivatives of Federal Reserve notes. And so, yeah, I think that's why all the banks are saying, oh, we have a coin shortage. I saw an interview with this guy who works for the San Francisco Mint, and he said, we have literally warehouses full of coins. I don't know what they're talking about this coin shortage. So the banks don't want to give out the coins because they know that's money as well. Because you just think about, okay, if my ATM goes down because JP Morgan screws up a derivative and every bank goes under because they're fractionally reserved, meaning if you go in to get your money, you're not going to get it. What are people going to use as money? If you can't get those Federal Reserve notes out of the ATM, what's going to happen? What are you going to do?
Yeah.
And you're not going to trust anybody because the bankers screwed you up, and you don't have to pay your debt, which is the greatest thing about this whole transition. But at the same time, you have no assets unless you got them in your own possession. So
before I bring Penny in, I also wanted to ask you, Bix, about these videos that we're seeing of people at Bank of America saying that they're missing money, they're directed to customer service, and basically nobody's really...
It's on The Simpsons, too.
Yeah, nobody's taking ownership of any of these problems. Do you think there's reality to that? Is that the beginning of the cracks here that's showing that the banks maybe are not in the position they were in 2008 and that they're doing or starting to have the bail-ins as opposed to the bailouts? Is that what we're looking at?
Well, we already know they're not doing well. All the regulators are saying it. The FDIC came in and said, we really don't have the money to back up. They have less than 1%, I think, of the money to back up FDIC insured banks.
Well, in that last video last month, they're talking about haircuts and how they explain that to the population without creating a more severe bank run. So they're stressed.
The thing about haircuts and bail-ins, you got to remember, like in Cyprus, they did bail-ins, but it was only the amount over the insurance. I think they had 100,000 euros insurance.
Right.
So bail-ins are basically for the rich. The rich are going to have to take haircuts. And I could see, the Biden administration pushing that. So it won't be everybody has to take a hit on their checking and saving if that comes true. I don't think we'll get to that point because there'll just be so much. Can you imagine what's that senator from New Hampshire?
Bernie?
No, the woman. Is she from New Hampshire? Pocahontas.
Elizabeth Warren.
Elizabeth Warren. Can you imagine her if the banks are saying, "Oh, bail in, we're going to take your money"? No. That's why I'm saying, like, there can be no deciders in this. Congress isn't going to be able to agree on anything. And then when everything falls apart, we do have gold and silver as money in the past. And I do think that the mint, that's what they're doing. That's why they can't make the Eagles now, is because they're preparing for something much bigger, which is the destruction of the banking system, which is, the derivatives go and all the banks go. It's just over. All your 401k, you name it. If it's not in your possession, you don't have it. Complete anger. Then we got to restart. So I think we're at that point, but
okay,
it could happen tomorrow. It could happen in 10 years. I don't know.
I hope it's not 10 years. Okay. Penny, how about you? First of all, thank you for being on. And what do you see maybe framing the month of January? You and I did a look-see in December and one in early January. Looking at all of the events now, what seems to be collating the most, I guess, with your look-sees and framing perhaps where we're going in February and March here moving forward? What would you say?
I have to say that the video that was released, I'm going to say that poor guy from Pfizer, I'm sure that he's done for, number one. And that video that, was put out by Veritas, that was just, the more he talked, the more I could just see, my friend, you're putting your foot all the way down to your belly button, you ought to shut up. But
there's a point where you have to stop digging your own grave, and he went way past the point.
Oh my God. I was just like, does he not anyway. So that's one thing. But the other big thing is Ukraine and the fact that people are now talking openly about about the war with Russia, not the war with Ukraine. We're not supporting Ukraine. We're not trying to help Ukraine. We're having a war with Russia. And when you stop and take a look at the kinds of, what I'm going to say, attention and focus and development and design, the engineering behind the kinds of weaponry that Russia has developed over the last 25 years, while we were worrying about whether Michelle Obama was a girl or a boy and a bunch of other BS stuff, they were building weaponry that's phenomenal. And when you see their reported definition, or their reported, what do you call that, parades of weaponry and demonstrations of that, you know that the people in Ukraine don't have a snowball's chance in hell. And that if we don't stop putting tanks over there and weaponry, and Russia has said all along, look, stop, we don't want this. We don't want to fight this. We don't want to do this, but we're not going to stand by and let you take over. And the big plan, of course, the long-term plan was for the United States and the cabal people and their alliances with Israel to take over that Ukraine, period. They were going to make that their homeland again, and they were going to run the world from Ukraine. And Russia, they were going to run Europe and Asia. And Russia pretty much said, no, not in our backyard. Mm-hmm. And don't bring your tanks, don't do this, don't do that. And we just did it more and more. And the thing that I think is yet to be seen over February, March, and April is not so much that we are, I'm going to say, having World War III, which we are with Russia. We're pretty much gutting the U.S. George Soros is the one that is supporting the whole war with Russia. Okay, encouraging Ukraine, pushing the U.S., pushing all the stooges and all the puppets. Keep doing this, keep deciding that, I'll give you more money, etc. So what was George Soros's plan? It was to destroy the United States. He said that would be the epitome of his life's work. And he would be able to leave here knowing he had succeeded. And here he is, 90 some years old. He's still pushing for that. Who's getting gutted? We are. Who's looking bad on the world stage? We are. Who's sending tanks and just, we don't have any money and we're going into debt debt to last till the year 3000. Mm-hmm. And so I think all of that is going to sink in, along with the discouragement of the discouragement around the kind of, excuse my French, one of those oh shit moments where you realize that the whole pandemic thing was what can we say?
Yeah, watch your words.
Yeah.
I don't want to join Bix on Rumble. Just
I know. So,
well, let me hold on, Penny. Let me ask you. This just came out the other day, and of course, we had some bills being presented to audit the money that was sent to that part of the world. We can stop saying part of the world for now, and yet it was opposed in Congress. Similar things are happening here in Canada, but now apparently we're starting to find out where a lot of that money is going. Now, is this how do you call it in English, a red herring, where they're saying, oh, it's hookers and booze, prostitutes, big houses, as to avoid maybe the redirect going towards the political parties? Or is this perhaps the beginning of an understanding for most of the population of where this money is actually going to? What are your thoughts on that, first, Penny?
100%, well, not 100%, maybe 10% of the money that we are sending over there is going to the soldiers and the armaments and stuff like that. 90% is coming right back into the pockets of the people that are running the show. It's so much corruption. Billions have disappeared. Whole truckloads or trainloads of tanks land in Ukraine, never seen again. Where is all that going? The same thing happened in Iraq. Billions and billions of dollars, busloads of cash just disappeared. Where did it turn up later? 10 years later, it showed up in Lebanon. There's just, I think that's one of the things that the American people have to realize, is that the money we're sending isn't helping Ukraine. It's going right back into the pockets of the cabal. Why are they pushing the war? They need money. Why are they getting us to send money over there? They need money, and we are falling for that. So,
well, they need money here because there's been a disruption, perhaps in their trafficking flows and all that. We could, again, this is a hard topic for YouTube. But Joe, let me bring you back up on the screen here. Last month, Trump was talking about ending the cartels in Mexico, and suddenly we saw some action there. Now he's talking about ending the war here in Ukraine. Everybody's like, well, he's not the president, but it appears that actions are being taken, even though he's just talking from his Twitter account. Well, not his Twitter, but here at Truth Social. What do you make of that? Explain that to the audience members who are not following this so closely.
Yeah, and remember, Antheos, once again, pay attention to President Trump's words. Pay close attention to the exact words he uses. That's what he said. Just everything else is noise. Just listen to what he's telling you. So, like you just said, he says something, boom, it happens. How the hell did he just deal with cartels? He's not the president. Biden's in charge. What happened? All of a sudden, the cartels get knocked out. Now he just said that. First comes the nuke, whatever. Then the nukes. Then this is easily stoppable. We could do this so easy. We could stop it. So what's he saying? Exactly that. It'll end. And
is it possible, Joe, that in this, you know how he often says things, but he's not actually talking about the thing he's talking about, and people are doing decodes all the time, and some of it comes to be true, that he was actually talking in code. We had the flag situation, the semaphores, maybe a couple of months ago. You remember when the tanks were in front of the banks in China? When I saw that tweet here today, I'm like, oh, is he actually talking really, really about the war, or is he talking about maybe the war on cash and the new implementation of CBDCs here? And when he says the tanks,
with that comment there,
yeah, the tanks with the banks and then the nukes, I thought, oh, is it a nuclear meltdown of the derivatives bomb? And a lot of people have been talking about that, including Cliff High recently, saying one's just around the corner, and that's just the first of many that's going to go off. Do you think maybe there's relationship to the financial system here too?
I'm not feeling that personally off of that comment. I think it's exactly. What's that?
If they drop a nuke, it'll have ramifications on the on the derivatives system.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe, but let's just say word for word what he's saying. We're talking Ukraine. They're sending the tanks, and we saw what Putin said. Hey, if you send these over here with this depleted uranium, we're taking that as a kind of a dirty bomb situation. That's like an act of war to us with nukes. So hello, we'll fire back with nukes. Is essentially what Russia's saying. So. What happens if he's literally telling you the play that's going to happen right now? First comes the tanks. We're sending them. Putin makes the threat to say, hey, don't do that. I'm giving you the warning. Of course, under Joe Biden, we're going to do it. We're sending the tanks anyways. Let me stop there for a second. We're sending some M1 tanks, M1A1 Abrams tanks. The same shit we had in, I think, the 80s and 90s, Saddam Hussein. We're sending stuff that can easily be destroyed over there.
Yeah.
So first of all, why are we even wasting our time with that? It just doesn't make sense. So it's enough. We're sending just enough over there so that maybe Putin will react, like maybe according to the script. So Trump's telling you, and again, maybe this will play out just like that, where we send the tanks, Putin makes the threat, and then, okay, they're using the tanks in Ukraine. Russia, with a stroke of a pen or click of a button, wipes these tanks out and some others with some tactical small nukes and wipes these things out. Oh, there they use the nukes. Not a giant, Hiroshima type bomb or bigger. Just tactical nukes, takes these things out, makes good on his threat because we sent these stupid things over there with the uranium on the tipped weapons or whatever. As we call depleted uranium, it still can harm you. So then that happens, and then maybe he's telling you, okay, then it ends. Then we end the war. So these are the events. This is what's going to happen, and then that thing in Ukraine will be ended because that will be the final. Oh my gosh, Putin just used some nukes again, tactical, whatever they are. Oh my God, the war is over. He just took care of business, but because the tanks were there again, it's all part of this little script. So the other side would be maybe it's not going to get at that point. Trump's letting you know that the tanks are being sent, but you know what? We're not going to go that far. But he's got in all caps saying this, and this. So
Bix, what do you make of all this? Is this just bubble gum for the brain? Do we have bigger problems? Is this a big distraction? Or as Snippy's saying here, maybe they're showing us the script here on how all of this is going to unroll and eventually get to some type of finale or even some justice here. What are your thoughts?
A lot, but I mean, so the John Teeter story, he gave, I think it was 3 or 4 U.S. cities time to get out. He said, we're going to nuke these cities. U.S. cannot handle our capabilities militarily. We can send these nukes over these cities. We're going to do it. It's going to happen in 8 hours. Get out of the city now, and then we'll just take out the infrastructure. And then you guys need to fight your own civil war against your own deep state. That was his story back in the late 90s, early 2000s. I have a pair of night vision goggles. I've seen the capabilities that go far beyond, lobbing nukes on people. It's completely different. I mean, I've recounted this story many times that I was up in my dad's vineyard, midnight, pitch black, a friend of mine and Amy, and we're sitting there having wine, and all of a sudden an explosion in the sky happens. The whole valley lights up, just bright as day, and then it goes away. I'm like, what the hell? And I grab my night vision goggles and I look up, and there's a stream of smoke coming in. Big explosion right here, and a stream of smoke going off.
Did it make any noise?
I don't remember if it was a noise. It wasn't huge, but I mean, it felt like a noise. It was so bright, literally light, just like day. But I keep thinking about that, and my conclusion is, when it gets to that point, we're being protected. There is protection for the human race as long as we're still trying. I think we have either ET protection, angelic protection. It wasn't something that came from Earth that hit whatever was coming in. It hit like a shield over the United States. And I'm not making this up. This wasn't a movie. And I had the night vision goggles. That's the only thing that could explain it. And then I've seen the spacecraft flying around. There's just so much more technology than lobbing nukes on people. There's so much more. And anytime that would end. And remember, this president is not real. This whole administration is not real. So you got to think, okay, this playing out. Maybe they're saying, here's how close we can get to destroying everything. Wake up.
Right. Penny, let me bring you on here too. There's 2 things here. You, Joe and I did this review of the John Teeter material maybe a month ago, 2 months ago. People can go watch it. I believe it's still on YouTube, or maybe we put it on Rumble. I forget if it was.
I think it's still up.
It's still up? Okay.
Yeah.
And we kind of came to the conclusion that the timeline as suggested in the John Teeter material was past, so that we had gone further past where those potentialities were. I know you and Joe were kind of like not on the same page there, but let's say that's the case. There is still, as Bix is talking about here, the off-world component. And I know you don't always like to talk about what's going on off-world, but bring that into the context here. Of course, this is the Wacky Woo show, so we have to talk about the off-world here a little bit. Do you see what Bix is saying there too, that there is help to some extent here? There might be actual off-world representation of this war also that we're seeing, the as above, so below? What would you say is the pulse right now in the situation, just in our atmosphere?
Okay, couple of things. First, let me back up. Snippy said something when we first started that I thought, yep, I have that same feeling. And it's the feeling that what we're seeing is carefully orchestrated, very carefully. It's like, this is too perfect, or something too smooth about it. So there's that. In terms of the, what I'll call the off-world technology, what we have here now, what the US has, what most of the people on the planet Earth have, couldn't even hold a candle to the kinds of technology that other people have. People who can travel the stars don't do that on nuclear power or hydrogen or any of that kind of stuff. Okay, they know how to manipulate electrical frequencies. They know how to move frequencies. Even I remember some of that, and how you get a ship to move, etc. And how do you keep it from being bombarded by something that might run into out there? But the idea that we have the latest and greatest in technology, that is not correct. In one of the videos that I saw about, it was Russia's, the kind of weaponry that they have developed. It's all based on artificial intelligence, and they very quickly kind of gloss over the statement that they were given this by aliens. It's just one word in this whole slew of really hard to understand English that is coming at you, but they say it right there. And they also say this is artificial intelligence controlled by humans, not to artificial intelligence used to control humans, but for humans to use and enjoy the benefits of, because it has almost unlimited capability. So when you have, I'm going to say, other kinds of computing power that would make our computers look like toys that we buy. You know how you know how to play the piano? Well, you can buy a toy piano for your 3-year-old and they can plunk on it. Same level of difference between the computer systems that we have, even our best, here on this planet, and what they have available elsewhere. And what those computers can do is mind-blowing. And then going to the whole question of protection, yep, we have, I personally have been encouraged, hang on, you're so close, don't give up. When we see you not only reaching for an outcome that is good, but we hear you asking for us for help, we won't do it for you, but we'll try to arrange the forces so that you will think you have succeeded.
Or at least level the playing field so we can do what we're supposed to do here. I think that's interesting. I posted this video the other day. I had this conversation with Gosha from Cosmic Agency and Julie. You guys go and watch it out. It was last week on YouTube. But Doreen Dotan here was making a really good point in this video. Go check her out on YouTube. Are You Creeped Out by the WEF? Was the title. And she was suggesting making a reference to all of those guys making the walk of shame in Davos last week. And she was talking to the reporters, and she says every single attempt of humanity to bring back justice and freedom to humans is, of course, valid. But then she says, but not necessarily effective. And she said for every thousands of people that hit at the branches of the tree, only one actually hits at the root. So she was suggesting here that making these guys do the walk of shame, as some of our independent media were trying to do, was good and valid, but not necessarily effective. And what she's saying at the end of the video is, what we're seeing outside is the representations of the things we haven't healed in ourselves. And so when she says hit the root of the problem is ourselves. dealing with our core,
right.
with our core wounds, and becoming better humans, so that what is outside reflects what is inside. And a lot of people had offense to that video when I put it out the other day. It's like, "Oh, how dare you, JC? Like, it's not my fault; it's everybody else's fault." Well, hold on a second here. We all have a responsibility. I want to have all of your take on that. Penny, you're on the screen now. What do you make of that? That whole idea of not hitting at the branches, but hitting at the root, and us personally, individually, being the root of this problem that we're seeing manifest on the planet, and what we can do to fix that. What would you say?
I think that is absolutely right on. Hang on, just want to read something that I think is kind of a summation of that. Hang on. So what we have been doing here's what we're buying into. That Russia is struggling in Ukraine. Can we say those words?
I think we've already repeated it too many times.
And that Russia's going to lose the war. That's not true. That you should take the medicine to keep you and your family safe. You know, there's a whole bunch of things that. And so what have we been focusing on? We're the root of the problem. Why? Because we haven't been willing to face the truth. And we've been allowing ourselves, we've been lied to, and now we're playing a game and we're lying to ourselves. And here's just a few ways that we're lying to ourselves. That the succession of lame brain presidents we have had they've all been normal. They didn't create any chaos. They didn't create any confusion. They didn't create any instability. The $1 billion handouts of money to the banks after 2008. Well, we had to do that. Otherwise, the banks would have collapsed. There's been a whole stream of wars and invasions of small countries while we're beating our chest and telling ourselves we're the greatest military force in the world. And we're not. I'll just leave it at that. The pretended medical insurance for everyone that Obama put into place. We're focused on the Clinton body bag count. We let the Patriot Act and then the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, go into place and go into effect, and we didn't complain. We're arguing about same-sex marriage and whether or not Michelle Obama was a man or a woman. We went through the ranks of the military. I had a lot of people that I knew in the military, and all of the good people were thrown out, weeded out. They found or framed most of those good ones because they had some ethics, and they got rid of them. There's been a stunning increase in homelessness, and what do? Oh, that's not me. I don't see that. Do you see that? We're looking the other way, and dozens of other. We run from one sensational set of fears to another regarding technology, chips, AI. What are we doing? That's not what the rest of the world is doing. And when you get outside the bubble, the box that Americans are in, there's a shock waiting for people, a big shock. We aren't paying attention to what's going on in the rest of the world. And they're about done with us. They don't care if we get blown up.
Good point. Joe, let me bring you up also here. You've had many conversations with Woo Woo Dude, and he did talk about the root in different words, but alluding to the same thing here. Can you expound on that for the audience here tonight in lieu of Woo Woo Dude being here for this conversation tonight?
Yeah. I mean, he said he would talk with Spirit. Spirit, can't we just chop the tree down? Chop this root, this evil tree down. They said we have to expose the roots first, or it'll grow back. Expose the roots and get rid of the roots, the tree will just grow back. And that's how they worded it to him. So he goes, "Oh, I see." So if we go back to what we were all just talking about a minute ago, where it just looks like Penny used the right word, of this carefully scripted, like everything just coincidentally, this happens, that happens. It's like something is pushing this stuff in front of us, whether it's scary or whatever, it doesn't matter. Something's intelligently manipulating this little script. So if you look at the stuff, though, whether you get a shock and awe or not, you're at least getting a root of evil exposed to your face. We just got a huge one with the Pfizer undercover video.
Mhm.
That was a gigantic,
Right.
fat root. If there's a size chart here, there's it's a big old root just got shown.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, why did it get shown? Why did that guy? How did they just catch him undercover just now? How did James O'Keefe get his channel back just in time to do this? And other people, Cliff High's back now. Like Twitter's in control of by Elon Musk. He was put there to do this job exactly at the right time. Now Trump, I think I might go back to Twitter. I might go back, Okay. So again, it's just this big storyline that's coming out, but all this stuff has to be exposed from what the wars to the food to the medicine, the banks, all of it. We're watching the Bank of America thing. It's on the freaking Simpsons as usual. It's just everything that, like they keep saying, you normies better get a conspiracy theory friend soon. You're going to need them. You're not going to understand anything.
Happen. I agree.
Yeah.
Biggs, how about you? This idea of having to expose the roots or to get to the root of the problem, and also working on ourselves here. We can't forget that component, as Doreen was saying, that we are seeing refractions of what is not healed within ourselves, humanity as a whole. So if we all individually work on that, then collectively we are going to change what we see outside of us, because technically there's nothing outside. It's all already inside. What are your thoughts on that? How would you explain that? I know you've done a lot in the last couple of years on the spiritual path. What would you say to the audience?
I would say yes. I mean, the root, it's funny you use that word. One of my favorite words, is in the title of my life's work. But it's
and as of late, you're drinking a lot of root juices also. I see you look 10 years younger there.
I'm on the cleanse, day 6. But yeah. To me, it does go back to those Fed documents that I found in 2007, talking about the need to go back to a gold standard. The money situation it won't fix every problem, but it will fix a lot of the criminality. It'll, you look before the invention of the Federal Reserve, and you can argue why it was invented. Some people say it was the banksters wanting to take over. I think it was all the gold we found in the Grand Canyon had to be dealt with, or society would have split apart. But that's kicking the can. Let's deal with the things that are right in front of us. The root problem right now, I think the main one is the monetary system. That's where root A comes from. And if you look at back in Fortran, remember the Fortran programs that were written in the 60s? Yeah. Root A was the basis of our financial system. Then you got checking and savings and bonds, and all that stuff comes below it. You get back to the root, and the root had to be gold back then. And whether or not, I think it had to be gold because there was so much of it that we had, and nobody knew the value. We still don't know the value of gold. We don't know the value of silver. We need to remove those two metals from the derivative exchanges so that we can find out, hey, how much is everything worth, truthfully? How much is the dollar worth? I mean, we're finding out, Catherine Austin Fitts and Skidmore have done so much work in finding out what Ruta wrote in the sand. They're actually creating infinity money. Yeah. That's what Ruta wrote in the sand way back when. Yeah. They were creating money to infinity. That's the only way to get back to a gold standard. And that's what the road to root is about. You want to get to the root of everything. First of all, we need to change the money system. Mm-hmm. And then everything follows that, because the deep state can't fund their missions. The wars can't be funded. All of a sudden, money is valuable again. Yeah. And I have heard people tell me, oh, Bix, money is the root of all evil. And I'm like, that is a misquote. It is the love of money that's the root of all evil, not money. Yeah. It's the love of money that's the root of all evil. I do believe that. Yeah. Money serves a function right now. I think when we all have replicators, we won't need money. You'll have your basics, your food, your clothing. I'm serious. We are so close to replicators because, look at 3D printers. I saw a video of someone printing a house the other day with this big 3D printer. It just went round and round. Yeah.
And that stuff was invented 20, 30 years ago. We just know about that now. Imagine what they're inventing today in terms of printing technology, including body parts now.
I put 2050 as when replicators will be perfected. Not like everybody will. And then you could use a replicator to make another replicator, and voila. So then
Bix, I'm going to ask you. Well, thank you for looking at the root from that perspective. It makes a lot of sense, guys. You can go look at the Road to Ruta, Wishes and Rainbows, and get all the decodes on roadtoruta.com here if you want to have more info on that. Bix, I'll ask you about the dead clock. A few people are asking right now. There's some weird shenanigans in the last day. I know, but still, we'll have the conversation a little bit later on. But I wanted to go back. Just because Joe mentioned it here, for people in the live chat, they're saying, wait, Cliff is back. Yes, here's the account, twitter.com/Cliff_high. And he said in his video the other day, the world has ended because they let me back on Twitter. So go check him out. He's been very, very prolific in the last couple of days, and we're so excited to have him back on. Penny, I wanted to have your take on this here too. Well, the whole panel, actually. We're getting to this point again here in the WebBot data reports where we were looking at vengeance was one of the words that's coming up. A lot of people were going to have misdirected anger brought on by the fear, the realization that perhaps the things that they took were not good for them. And we'll watch our language here too. Here in this particular meme, they're talking about how the UNV, we'll call them the UNV right now, are responsible for the people who took the V, meaning that they didn't do enough to prevent the people from taking the V, right? And so that's part of the misdirected anger right now. And I wanted to know, do you think that this is orchestrated in a sense as a divide and conquer type of tactics to have us fight each other, as opposed to do what Jay Weiner, who was on the show the other day, asking the right question of who's in control of all of this? You know, instead of fighting each other, we really need to know and get to the root of the problem, as Doreen was saying, and all of you were saying. So going back to that idea, do you think that's being fomented, or is there at least a part of that too, that it's just human nature right now with the fear and the realization that perhaps they put themselves in harm's way, that they might get into this vengeance mode or misdirected anger, as we're seeing here? What would you say?
I don't see it as misdirected anger. I see it as deliberately manipulated anger. Can we get those vaccinated people? Whoops. Okay.
the V or the unwilling, just put it that way.
Can we get those unV'd people to get to focus their anger on the people who or can we get the V'd people to focus their anger on the unV'd, because we don't want to come in at Pfizer and Moderna. And so I see it as this, it's just a further manipulation. There's a lot of angry people, and they're angry about a lot of stuff, not just the V. You know, not just the censorship, not just the you know, the money situation, which, by the way, I have a question for Bix. Don't let me forget to ask that. But there's that anger has built up, not to mention the anger at what I'm going to call the unacknowledged or unspoken anger about the losses of freedoms and rights. That's going to hit like all of a sudden, and people are going to say, that's enough of that. Yeah, and they're going to tear stuff apart. I think that they are, the people who got the V are going to be much more interested in, how do I fix this? How do I heal this? And I just think that whole effort to make them angry, or to, it was what was that article that came out that said we ought to forgive the people. Oh, we didn't know. It came out in the Atlantic Monthly, I think it was. It was an article calling for
a truce. It was like a truce.
Yeah, right. Calling for people to understand. Oh, these poor scientists and doctors and
truce
CEOs.
or amnesty. They were looking for amnesty.
Oh, maybe that was it. Yeah, same thing actually. I see this as the same kind of. Well, let's see if we can get that anger going in that direction. And they're using psychology. If you know psychology, then you can see right through the crap that they're doing almost before they get the whole thing out of their mouth.
The reason I'm having the conversation, Pelly, too, is because if there is at least a portion of the population who might fall into that trap of being angry at the UNV for a period of time, I want to have the conversation because a lot of our followers will find themselves in that position and maybe on the receiving end of that vitriol. And I'm hoping that we can kind of together, at least knowing about it, talking about it, and maybe do a better job avoiding that vitriol here as the eventual anger finds its mark in terms of the root of the problem. That's why
you have to have some skill at redirecting what's coming at you. It isn't just the cabal and the people that are trying to run things, the pretenders that be. They aren't the only ones who know how to redirect or should know how to redirect. We need to know how to do that. If you've been in a long-term relationship, you better well have learned how to redirect. If you've had children, you know how to do that. Now you're going to have to use that on people around you. And some sympathy, I think, is in order. For sure. I would be angry too if I had.
We're way past the aha, I told you so. We don't need to say that anymore.
Oh, no.
I think it's very clear when you look at Clot Adams here saying that the UNV are winners. A lot of people, when I brought this up a couple of days ago, said, we don't feel like winners. We're losing parents, friends, loved ones. And I understand. And he doesn't seem to get the whole plot yet. But still, with 1 million followers, he's making an impact there, Joe. What do you think moving forward here, like this anger where it's misdirected? Do we have something that we could say also to give advice to the audience members to maybe stay clear of all that kerfuffle and maybe really focus on the future they want to create while all that is kind of like settling itself on the side? What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like most people, I think I'm right, that are watching us, they're already, light years ahead of the average person. They wouldn't have found us and kept listening to us, by now. So I feel like anyone listening is like, oh yeah, we already know that. Like, oh yeah, that kind of thing. Everybody in my groups that I've been a part of, when the V was going around, I'm going to lose my job, and what do I do? And I'm telling them, here's what I would probably do, and here's how to maybe skate that. And my parents are going to kick me out. They've got these little cards you could just get, and hey, mom, look. Oh, good idea. Those were the conversation I was having. It wasn't me telling them, I don't think you should do it, or I don't think this or that. It was just, they already knew, so I feel like our followers, are on that page. But to just touch for a second on like what Penny was just ending with, excuse me, and where let's blame the UNV for these, but they didn't warn us enough. Oh yeah. So there's a problem with that. They're admitting there's a problem.
Yeah.
They've just now admitted there's a problem. The same problem we always said was there. And now if I'm that person who got V'd hearing that, I'm going to go, no, wait a effing minute. It's safe and effective. You can't transmit. You can't, and all this shit. I'm checking off all these boxes that you said it couldn't do. And now, you want me to blame these guys, the guy at work that I argued with for a year straight, that we hate each other now? You want me to go blame it on him? No, I think most people will see through it. But
I'm not saying it's not ludicrous, but some humans have went, and swallowed the ludicrousness in the last couple of years.
Right. And there will be some who believe in that. Oh yeah, you should have warned me worse, better. But right when that comes out, which is just recently, right? That last little thing that you put up, that article.
Yeah.
What happened? Veritas, we've got an amazing undercover video to show you. Yeah. You want to talk about a redirection?
Yeah.
They redirected with this little pinch of salt. Yeah. And these guys just came in with a 55-gallon drum and just squashed that with that alone. So again, if I'm the V person and I'm kind of buying it, my friend at work should have told me more than he didn't try hard enough for me. I did, and then that comes out. Oh man, this is looking intentional.
Yeah.
Wait a second, they did this to me on purpose. Whoa.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thought process someone's going to go through.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to be there going, we told you so, but we don't even want to say that. We just want to sit there and go.
That's against the rule in our family. You can never say, I told you so. That just rubs somebody's nose.
Yeah, it hurts when you use those words. It's like, we tried to warn you. It's all kind of the same, where you just can't really win when you're trying to.
You can say, well, what do you think you need to do now? Mm-hmm. That is an invitation to get somebody going in a direction that's constructive.
Yeah, and then they go, well, what do you think? Honestly, you're F, man. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you.
No, that wouldn't be. I would say, okay, it's time for some detox. So,
Biggs, what do you make of all of this? This whole idea that there's this misdirected anger, or how we're going to live with all that? Because, you know, in the Webbot data, Cliff was talking about the fact that this is perhaps the first war in humanity where we're eventually going to win the war. We're seeing now the light at the end of the tunnel in this particular war, but only after the war will we face all of the casualties of that war. A lot of that is already baked in the cake. We don't know how bad it is, but there are numbers now. If you look at the actuary reports, the old death, all causes death mortality rate is higher than it ever was. So there's something there. But how do we manage all of this fear, all of this anger as we move forward? What would you say to the audience members?
First of all, I'm way behind enemy lines here in Northern California. So you know, I think that one article is a one-off. It doesn't get what the drama and trauma that was caused by people butting heads over over this thing, the V thing. I think it completely thinks that, oh, it was just a casual conversation. Nobody had casual conversations about these. I mean, everybody and their mother was fighting with, you know, people weren't going to Christmas dinner, and it was a lot more dramatic than that. I think this article, if that's what they're trying to do, is stir up this kind of hatred towards that part of the equation, I think it's going to fail miserably, because anybody who had to experience it and go through it felt the pain of fighting with friends and family. So I don't think that will work at all. You know, I keep coming back to, as bad as it gets, this is the best place to be for my soul and my spirit right now, because we get to deal with all this. I mean, it's not the end. It's not the end of the journey. You're not trying to get somewhere. It's the journey that counts. And we're learning and we're growing. And I mean, nobody had to deal with the shit we're having to deal with right now. That means they didn't learn these lessons. They didn't get the opportunity to go through it. And it's really tested our friendships, our family, our own understanding of personal sovereignty. And I think it's amazing revelations that humanity has learned from all this. And we use that and we go forward, and we can go forward in a much more positive way, having gone through what we've already gone through.
Yeah. Cliff had this post too. He says all those V people saying that the un-V didn't do more to warn them need to really look at the former admin of Twitter, Facebook, social media, the Biden regime, big pharma corps, you know, et cetera, and who were all very adamant about removing the voices of the un-V off of all of these social media. And as you said, Bix not being invited to Christmas dinners and all that. So it's not that we were trying. A lot of people were shouting from the rooftop. So I agree to some extent with you guys. It's not going to have a lot of traction, but it's still... It irks me to read that, not just for myself, but for our friends and families who went through being ostracized and not allowed to go to restaurants and not being able to participate in society because we had these views. Not that we were being mean and selfish, but that something was wrong, and we were trying to help people fight for their right to have the choice, to have freedom of choice, and to be fully consenting on what that choice was. And, you know, okay. I'm just gonna get into it, right? But yeah, it irks me to see this. I guess that's why it's bugging me.
And a lot of those people weren't exactly that nice to us.
No. Yeah.
You know, you're selfish, you're greedy,
you're a traitor, you're a walking terrorist, like Gene said, like all these videos that came out. It's like, oh my God, including Claude Adams. I mean, he was like going to sue a bunch of people, and now he has to unblock the people he was blocking on his Twitter because he's like, oh, it turns out they were right. So the big mea culpa moment is here. The turnaround is here, and it's encouraging to see. But at the same time, I just want to make sure that our peeps are safe here moving through that. And perhaps there's bigger problems. Honestly, perhaps there's bigger problems. Penny, why don't you ask a question now? You said you had another question for Bix about the financial system or the money system. What do you want to bring up?
I'm not sure I can express this the way I'm trying to wrestle with it, but so here's the question. Bix, do you think that there's a complete disconnect between what we the people are doing with our money and the banking system and the local economies and the Fed and the Wall Street? Is there any relevance to us in terms of what the Fed and the big banks and Wall Street are doing? Because the reason I ask is because it looks to me like everybody is struggling and losing money and losing jobs and losing houses and cars and all kinds of stuff. And they're looking at Wall Street and the Fed as if to say, well, you know, it's everything is going okay. And I don't think you can look at the Fed and Wall Street as a signal or symbol of how well we're doing. And so I was like, I'm going to ask Bix, is there any relevance to what they're doing versus what we're experiencing?
The relevance is they're 50 times worse off than we are, except they get bailed out nightly. 2 quadrillion in reverse repos. I mean, the Fed's pumping money, and it's like the dam with all the holes in it. You know, there's just so many fingers you can put in this. So yeah, they have failed. They fail every day because the Fed keeps bailing them out and bailing them out and bailing them out. Now, I think, well, they can do it forever sometimes, but most of the time I think, hey, wait a minute. The Roto-Rooter documents came out of the Fed. When I look at the full gamut of what they're saying in those documents is we need to go back to a gold standard in the United States of America. There's bad people. In 2008, that was the Fed doing that. The Fed in 2007, they released this comic book, and the only thing they changed was what Ruta wrote in the sand. Instead of this formula about, you know, going back to a gold standard, they wrote 11 plus 9 in the sand. And it was on 9/11 in 2008 that the rug was pulled out from under the stock market.
Well, so if they came out of the Fed, then I guess in my mind, that's just because Alan Greenspan was there and he was like a rogue Fed guy saying, hey, we need to fix this and we can't really fix this right now, but it's coming. It's coming. So, you know, I guess I haven't been inclined to give the Fed any credit or any leeway.
You shouldn't. I mean, I sometimes talk positively about the Fed because there are a lot of good people in the Fed, and it needs to be folded into the Treasury. But the reality of they know better than anybody that the system is dying. And so they're the ones, and I think they are the ones along, and they take their direction from the Treasury. I mean, Jerome Powell is the head of the Fed because he was in charge of the derivative book for Bankers Trust back in the late 90s that sold this monster problem over to Deutsche Bank. And look what happened to Deutsche Bank. So that's why Jerome Powell was put there. But the ultimate decision is the United States of America. We ran this system since the computers came in the late 60s, early 70s. We controlled everything. We went off the gold standard. Greenspan wrote the programs to rig the markets along with the banking programs. He blamed himself for Y2K. But it was all to kick the can until it is no longer in the United States' advantage to keep this system going. And we're here now. We're the largest debtor country in the world. The biggest winner would be the United States of America if we pulled the plug. And the other big thing is in the late 90s, the reason they didn't regulate derivatives and how we got into such a mess now with derivatives is because they wanted the banks to run their derivative books up because they knew it would destroy them.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're inching up to $3 quadrillion in derivatives, and they keep having to add more derivatives upon more derivatives just to plug the holes in the leaking dike. Now, I do think there will be a day when you don't have to do anything to destroy the system. You just have to stop plugging the holes, and then it all falls apart.
Do you think we're almost there, that Fed pivot that everybody's talking about? Let me just run a few of the news items that I ran today in the Beyond Crypto Woo show. The U.S. consumer has cracked and discovers plunges after shocking chargebacks here, so people not paying their credit cards, the bankruptcies. This one here, buyer cancellation rate at top of U.S. home builder surpasses 2008. Here we're seeing housing bust 2.0, San Francisco Bay Area house prices plunge 30%. We just had earlier today or yesterday, the Bank of Canada come out with their new interest rate hike for the let me see if I can bring that up here, but they were the first ones this week who said we're raising by a 25 basis point, but we're halting after that to kind of assess the situation here, because there's always a lag time between the interest rates and the consumer price index. But are they halting here as a first signal to that pivot that eventually comes here? Bix, let me get you first on that pivot. How close are we to that? Maybe that pulling of the plug, that final pull of the plug here, as we were talking about?
It won't come because of anything the Fed does or because of any economic data. We all know they lie about the economic data.
They do?
Go to try to buy eggs in America these days. Yeah, everybody's like, oh my God, look at the price of eggs. Yeah. I just bartered with my neighbor. His garden inched over onto my property. And I was talking to him. I go, okay, you're going to have to owe me. I want a dozen eggs a week from you. So we made a deal. That's the kind of economic system we're going to have to deal with for a little while. So make sure you're prepared for that. But yeah, I don't think any of the things you're taught in business school. I went to business school. None of the things I've taught, or 25 years as a banker, none of it applies to what's happening really behind the scenes. They lie, they cheat, they steal until they're ready to change. And when that happens, yeah, it'll be an amazing thing. Everybody's like, oh my God, I'll lose my bank account. Don't worry about it. That's the problem. The problem is the bad guys have 99% of the money and they're controlling your life with it. Like pushing a baby eagle out of the nest. You're going to have to fly on your own for a little while. So prepare yourself.
Guys, if you're interested in most of those decodes, we did them today. It's available now on pay-per-view. It's called the Beyond Crypto Woo. We look at the financial markets, gold, silver, and also crypto. We got into silver quite a bit. You'll be interested too. And it's going to be music to Bix Weir's ears, that's for sure. Joe, I wanted to bring a new segment onto the screen here for you guys. We saw earlier today. Let me see if I can bring this up here. I just lost it from the screen. I'll just bring it up and then I'll have you comment on it. But essentially, here, this breaking news article, which is, I'm not sure how to read this yet. SWIFT no longer processing fiat currency transfers from bank accounts to cryptocurrency exchanges with a value less than 100K effective February 1st, 2023. That seems to suggest that somebody somewhere wants to block the little guy here, while all the barn is burning and their fiat dollar is burning, to not be able to get out of the old system. How do you read that, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's more of a scary, let's shake people, get them to sell, again, get people, just get word over cryptos again, than anything else, because they were saying, it's a particular bank that Binance was using, and theoretically they could just choose a different bank who will do it. Right. Is one way. But the other thing is, since I've been in crypto and everybody I know, they would go to something like Coinbase and buy it directly. There's no need for Swift and like sending stuff internationally. Like they would just send it to their local exchange. In our case, in America, we send it to Coinbase, and it could be $100,000 or $200,000, or it doesn't matter what it is, and then start transferring those over to Binance or Mandala, for example, who uses Binance as the backend. And people are using VPNs to connect to these places, and then you just transfer that stuff over there, and you play over there. So yeah, but for the average person, they're I don't know anybody, to be fair, that's looking to put 100K. Like, I got 100K, I want to go throw at one shot at let me transfer that internationally. It's just, again, to me, it's just a headline of, let's scare the people. I don't really see anything in this, honestly.
Okay. Bix, how about you? This idea of them closing the redemption gates and some of these pension funds, people can get their money out, and also creating these barriers to entry either in crypto and also in gold and silver in terms of premiums. What do you see happening right now? And is there still time for people who are just kind of waking up to all of this now, God forbid, and who want to take their money out of the old system and try to bridge it into the new here without taking too much of a haircut? What would you say?
I would say, make no mistake, we've been at war with these banks since 1913 and before. This is the third central bank of the United States. It's just part of the war. They're not going to go down without a fight, and I'm not saying it. Yes, I'm talking out of two sides of my mouth. One side says the Fed's going to end the system, and they know it has to end. But in the meantime, there's people within the Fed say we need to keep control, like the World Bank and the IMF and all that. There's deep state people. See, there's good and bad within every institution or organization. But I think I think that was a scare tactic, but also, I mean, clearly the big banks want as many cryptos as they can get. This is the first time ever that we're going to see a collapse of a currency where there's an alternative. There's an alternative that's probably easier, cheaper, and faster, and more reliable, and all these things. It's like, oh my God, it's like kids in the candy store. We have Bitcoin, we have Litecoin. Before you'd have to go back to gold and silver, and they couldn't figure out how to, you'd have to carry coins around in your pocket. Well, they then figured out how to go around that with the new identifier on the bottom of the coin. But it is different. But the biggest difference that I want everybody kind of to think about for a second is that this is the first time in history, human history, that I know of, human history, that the entire globe was in a trance of fiat money, unbacked currency, created out of thin air, not even paper anymore. And that's going to fail. We've seen one-off failures like in Germany and Venezuela and Zimbabwe. Yeah. This is a global failure of fiat currency. That's a biggie. And that's why I'm like, there will be no trust left. It's not going to be Klaus Schwab who's deciding what to use as the next monetary system.
Well, while you're still on the screen here, I saw this earlier today. Congress may decide that the SEC is not the right regulator for some or all crypto. Now, on one hand, they went after Reggie Middleton with Veritasium, and on the other hand, they let the FTX boondoggle play out and turn a blind eye to it. Do you think that we have a hope here with this news that there's going to be a new regulator that would make sense? Or is it meet the new boss, same as the old boss? We're not going to need any of them if we move to these decentralized systems. And we're adamant as humans about moving away from those centralized systems. What would you say?
I think when the system controls, we get back to no one's going to trust the SEC or the CFTC or any of the regulators. I've been advocating for a long time, get rid of regulation. And what it would do, it would make people more wary of getting into cryptos because they are dangerous. And they are, if you get fooled, that's your fault. Don't get fooled. And it would make people think, if you go into the stock market, don't cry because you lost money because of fraud at Enron or whatever. We have to take care of ourselves. The regulators are human beings that they run cover for the manipulation right now. If they move into cryptos, they're going to do worse. They're going to do worse than what we had before. We need a world without regulators, which means everybody won't be, throwing their hard-earned money into crazy schemes. You'd be wary of it, or if you're real smart, you figure out the good ones. And that's the way it should work. And I think it will work when we give up this crazy system that we're in.
Are we close?
You don't need the.
Go ahead, Joe.
You don't need the SEC, who's always, behind on everything, just like the CFTC is. Some event happens, then they're there.
Yeah.
And then they go after someone like Reggie Middleton of all the things you could have gone after. But we're going to go ahead and pamper FTX. And we're going to have backroom deals, and we're going to have meetings with the head of the SEC, which is Gary Gensler, with Sam Brinkman-Fried, and that whole thing goes belly up. Yeah. So we don't need the SEC to stop us from doing our thing, because if someone does something bad anyways, like let's just say FTX again, they still did what they did. Where was the SEC? Nowhere to be found, actually colluding with them, if you look at some people's reports. So forget even colluding with them.
Conclusion on gold and silver.
It's going to happen.
Regulators are absolutely useless.
The end result's the end result. So if they do illegal, they're going to go to jail. They're going to go in front of a judge. They're still going to get the same treatment. So just get the SEC out of the way. Get the CFTC out of the way. Like Trump said, for every regulation we create, we're removing 2 regulations.
Right.
That's what we need to do. Matter of fact, make it 3 while you're at it. Let's hurry up.
Get the SEC out of the way, or we just put the final nail in the US dollar. I want to have you guys chime in on this here. This is the Saudi Central Bank is carrying out experiments with a central digital currency here in cooperation with other financial institutions. Now, for all intents and purposes, the petrodollar died when the Saudis made a deal with Russia. We didn't know all the details of that deal, but here we're seeing perhaps that on top of selling oil for other asset classes around the world, they might be getting into crypto here. Is that the last nail, Bix, while you're there, for the petrodollar? And is this perhaps what triggers this innovation, this boom, and this requirement for us to find a trustless system here in the distributed ledger technology you were talking about?
I think the petrodollar died when derivatives came into play big time in the 90s. They don't need countries to hold dollars anymore because they can rig every market with derivatives. So, I mean, it was still in place. The petrodollar was created in the 70s by Kissinger and Greenspan, went to Saudi and said, hey, you buy our oil, we'll buy your oil in US dollars, require everybody in the world to buy in US dollars, and then reinvest that money into our stock market and we'll all get rich. That was the plan, and it would put artificial support under the US dollar. That's been in play, but in the 90s and early 2000s, the derivatives got so big, so much bigger than the amount of oil, which is the biggest commodity on earth bought and sold, by the way, by far. You look at oil and gas and butane and natural gas and ethylene, all that stuff, and the infrastructure. I mean, you take that away, if you have an invention of making magnetic electricity, for example, two magnets repel each other, they spin around and around. That's just like been so obvious for so long, and yet every patent that's applied for gets put into a national security hole, and people aren't allowed to know that we can make free energy. But is that the last nail in the coffin? Yes. There's been 5,000 nails. Let's just put another one in, and another one, and another one, because the reality, as long as the derivatives are holding up, they can control any price, the price of gas, the price of milk, the price of the US dollar, the price of gold and silver, obviously. As long as there's more derivatives, high frequency trading, coordinated together, which they do, they can control this system as long as they want to. As soon as that's over, as soon as something fails in that area, it's all over.
I wonder if that's the February 2nd that Cliff High was talking about in his last video. He did talk about this first derivative bombs that he saw going off and being small, even though it was going to be big and shocking to everybody, going to be small compared to the next bombs that are going to go off in sequence here, maybe for the next little while. So time will tell. We'll have to follow up on those forecasts. But another forecast here that is bang on, this was Cliff a couple of years ago saying that at some point these guys couldn't walk in the streets. And of course, that's what's happening now here in Canada with our Justin Castro, Prime Minister. This was at their caucus meeting the other day. Penny, in your look-sees, did you ever see the idea of Canada being dissolved in some way or being brought into North America? Cliff High had this web out data where perhaps it would split in two. Also, there'd be a no-fly zone around Ottawa. And in the last year, his web out data was putting out something to the effect that we would have at some point a newly constituted Canada. So the new Canucks type of words were coming out. What did you have in the look-sees and perhaps also in the robes as it pertains to the makeup of North America?
Yeah, actually, Canada broke up before the U.S. did. It split in half, east and west, and the attitude of the people who broke away was, "You come here, we're going to shoot you." It was not. It wasn't forgiving. It was not forgiving. So that anger. I remember looking at that and thinking, "Wow, that looks pretty ferocious," and they were. They were absolutely unwilling to put up with any more of whatever was coming out of Ottawa. And that was a big surprise for me. And then right at the same time, almost the same time, the northwest corner of the U.S. was breaking away. And it looked like some of that was going into Canada. I don't think Canada comes into the U.S. I think they absorbed some parts along the top edge of the U.S. goes into Canada, and that's, you know, with lots of changes. I see the threads. I hear the talk. We're walking right down that path toward the breakup of the U.S. and I see, unfortunately, that it's going to be rough to try to get from one area of the country to another if you're just trying to do ordinary business and you're not paying attention to what is the political will or the political attitude in that part of the country you're going to. It's dangerous. And so there's a period, almost maybe 8 or 9 years, where you can't travel freely, and then it all settles down. And There's a civil war that I've seen coming. It's still coming, and it's really also kind of like Canada, unforgiving. We're not taking any more crap. You come here, if you're known to be somebody who's on the wrong side, we're going to get you.
Wow.
So,
Joe, going back to these last episodes we did with Cliff about the temporal markers, where do you think we're at right now, judging by the old Web Auditor reports? Bring that into focus here for the audience members and looking at some of the temporal markers that are falling right now and how they were attached perhaps to those older data sets. What do you make of this maybe breakup of North America, or this idea of a new North American kind of treaty coming about? I was just showing a screen here of the last news we saw in Canada here last week. What do you think, Joe?
Well, there's been prophecy, you know, and I think it may have even been Edgar Casey was one of the people I think also that saw a split up. Yeah. Again, going back to John Teeter, which looks like we've gone past that whole thing. He still saw that. So, you know, and again, with the John Teeter stuff, it's like, okay, he said that would happen then, but then it was like, we're starting to see that now. Wait a minute. You know,
let me interrupt for 1 second. Yeah. JC, let's go back to the difference in timelines at some point, okay? Okay, sure. Go ahead, Joe.
Oh, you mean let's do another part two maybe on the John Teeter stuff, you mean?
No, just a comment that I want to make, because a couple times now I've heard us talk about that's already passed. That isn't how timelines work.
Okay, we'll get back to that, Penny.
Okay.
I took notes.
Yeah, because when we say that's already passed, you know, because he gave specific dates.
Right.
So that's why I say that. But it is interesting
for them.
Yeah, so for us, it very well could be different in that those dates don't matter, but the events do.
That is exactly right. The timing is slightly different. The causes, the reasons, they were dealing with mad cow in their food system, and nobody would eat the public food system. We're dealing with the threat of mRNA being put into our animals and our food system and crop dusted and all that stuff.
But I would like to add on the Teeter thing. He did make a comment. I don't have it in front of me, but I do remember him because he wasn't supposed to be on our timeline doing anything. He just decided to do it.
Yeah.
Supposedly, like in the modern time he went to. He said he didn't have to come back to 1998 or whatever he said to visit his smaller 3-year-old self and all that. But when they were questioning him, you know, online, and he was replying, there was at some point during the conversation where he kind of alluded to, well, since he's here and he knows what he dealt with on his timeline, almost like he might be doing something here,
right,
to change ours for us in a positive light.
Yeah, to move the direction that we go.
Yeah, so I have that. You know,
go ahead.
So I whenever I say like, oh, we've kind of gone past that timeline, I always take that into consideration, going, you know, it's interesting because there's so many things he talked about. And it's like, ooh, you can kind of pick those things out now.
I know.
You can kind of see them, but it's like we'll get to certain things. It doesn't actually happen full on. So it's almost, again, back to our earlier conversation where it was like something is carefully crafting these events and the people who are getting caught on camera and this person. Just the other day, they got Katie Hobbs in a cast on her leg.
That's right. She was wearing.
Where did we see that before? With all these people all of a sudden? It was to me, and we even saw Trudeau, remember, doing the same thing. His leg, he was out with his kids, and he was out at some vineyard or something. He's got this
wife
big boot
also.
on.
His wife.
Yeah,
also.
this is So it's like, what are the chances? Again, if you just had statistics in front of you, going, what's the chances that this particular important person on Earth had that right then? The next was this person. Then shortly after that was this person. Shortly after that, and then all of a sudden we have this time period of, well, we don't really see any more of that. These are all people we want to see out of power. They all had it. And then all of a sudden, now Katie Hobbs takes power allegedly in Arizona. You know, we saw what happened with that nonsense. And now she's got a boot on her leg. So again, it's like somebody's doing this. It looks kind of scary. We think it might go this way. And it's like, not so fast. And it's almost just like a wink from the good guys going, we got, like, you're just watching a show. That chick ain't going to be the governor. Like, she is right now, and you think she is. But we're going to expose more about the voting machines while she's there and give her the stupid laughing giggle thing to say when she's got her hands up on the Bible. Will you swear to protect the Constitution? And she starts busting out laughing.
And you know, in a way, It's a cruel fucking joke to have to watch
Yeah,
this whole movie.
true.
I know.
Yeah, like the good guys. Come on, man. Come hurry up. I'm tired of waiting.
Enough already with
The
this
suspense
shit.
is killing me.
Well, the suspense is killing Flash Bang here. He says, "What's going on with the dead clock?" And Jeff is saying, "Oh my God, Bix never responded to the dead clock manipulation." Okay,
Oh.
what the hell's going on? I'll bring up a graph. Everybody's sending me this today. Here.
So I've
Go
heard
ahead.
the same thing for 15 years about this dead clock.
Mhm.
It is not a U.S. government site. Everybody's like, "Oh
Yep.
my God, the debt clock that's the U.S. government is saying this, this, and this." There's another site, U.S. I think it's called debtclock.org.
Yeah.
And it looks like an official U.S. site. And everybody goes, "Look, it's gold and silver should be massively higher." And what it is, it's a private site that puts up numbers based on inflation rates.
Mhm.
And where certain items should be, where should a U.S. bond be, where should the debt be, where should the gold and silver be. So don't look at it like, it's an official government type of website. It's not. Even though it looks official, it's not official. It's not from the government. It's a private.
Even if it's not official, what do you make of the fact that right now, for the very first time, they're putting the dollar to silver ratio and gold ratio at 0? What's up with that? Is that a head fake? Is just a play? Is it just a tech issue behind the scenes? Like, these guys are suggesting that there's something to it, perhaps.
What could be to it? So if it was a penny, that means silver would be worth $1 trillion, or I don't get what's being questioned.
Well, here they're saying the US fiat dollar is going to go bye-bye. So they're suggesting perhaps there's another thing coming up, and when that comes up, it'll reset the numbers. But in the meantime, they removed the old dollar because it's bye-bye, and that's why we're seeing zeros here, because $0 divided by something is still 0.
No,
I think that's what they're saying.
It's a private website run by a couple schmoes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jordan says, "Thank you for the question, JC." Okay, I tried, guys. I tried. Okay, guys, if you're looking for real silver things that are real and true and physical, yes, you can find them here at beyondmystic.net/silver. These are the discounts given to the audience members here at Beyond Mystic by Miles Franklin, our buddy Andy, who's in Canada right now, skiing on a slope somewhere. I'm really jealous of him. I'd like to be there with him. At any rate, the Buffalo Silver rounds are $265 over spot, and the Buffalo Bull Mint rounds at $285 over spot. Check it out. And of course, the Beyond Mystic silver bars are available there too. If you go up the form there's a specific form for that. And on top of that, yes, the Silver 2023 giveaway here is underway. There's a couple of days left here. If you guys want to enter to win, you don't have to buy anything. Just fill out the form here and put your name into the draw. I think February 1st or 2nd, Bix, Andy, and I will do a show to announce the winners. We had the winners last year. I believe this was the American winner, yes, for 2022. And let me bring up the Canadian winner for last year. I believe this guy was named Marcel. So congratulations to both of you holding that big ass 100-ounce silver bar. Those are heavy. And thank you so much, everyone, for supporting here the show. Speaking about that, I forgot to bring this up earlier today. Of course, this show is demonetized on YouTube, and Carla does an amazing job enticing you people to support the show here by providing these beautiful pyramids that she gives out to our audience members from time to time. This is the one for this evening. It's called Edition Winter. Let me play this one here and see what this beautiful pyramid is all about.
Bye.
Oh, let me restart that one.
There's a beautiful guy.
I hope you're all doing amazing. I'm Legend Organized, and today I have a special edition piece to show you. This is for the winter season. So I was compelled to create this piece. It is meant to help us go through the winter months and help us get ready for spring and manifesting new beginnings. This piece is made of opalite, moonstone, white quartz, howlite, aluminum metals, crushed white brass, and silver flakes here at the top. It also has the tetrahedron symbol on the 3 sides. It is a hexagonal pyramid. I'll give it a quick turn so you can see it. Wow. And that's the special edition piece for winter. I hope you guys like it, and I'll see you soon.
I do love it. Thank you so much, Carla. And if you guys are looking at getting one of these amazing organized pyramids in your own possession, you can do so here at ascensionorganized.com. And if you use the coupon code BeyondMystic, you'll get an extra 10% off of these amazing creations. Where are we? Oh, I had something. Okay, I'll wait for the last piece. Biggs, while we have you on the screen, are you? I know you're working on something special. You might be creating a nice little product. Are you ready to talk about that or no? Or do you want to talk about the very tokens? What do you want to share with us?
We're doing a few things at the Road to Ruta. I'm trying to ease out of doing so much. I'm getting older, and you gotta
take your retirement.
I know. But yeah, working with Andy Checkman to do some 10-ounce Road to Ruta bars.
Cool.
Which should be fun. And also, people have been like pestering me for over a year now to give away Veritasium tokens again. I gave them away a long time ago. And then Veritasium dropped below $30, and there's a rule that you can't give over 10% as a gift. It would be a sale and shit like that. So I bought a whole bunch, and we're giving away Veritasium tokens, 1 token with every subscription or renewal, loaded on a paper wallet, mailed to your front door, so you don't have to know about cryptos. You can stack it with your silver stack, and I see Veritasium as an insurance policy. They just got Reggie just got his 3rd patent approved in Japan for DeFi. And I mean, Reggie's patent covers a lot of the cryptos that are out there that we know and love. It'll be interesting how all this plays out. This isn't Reggie's fault that all this is coming up. They should have approved the patent in 2014 when he first invented Veritasium, a peer-to-peer transaction method without a third party.
Yeah,
it would have fixed the stock market, the bond market, the precious metals markets. So instead, they just attacked him with the SEC, destroyed his life, destroyed his monetary well-being, and he's still recovering from one of the most brutal and racist attacks that I've ever seen through a court system. Some of the things they said in the lawsuit, I'm like, that's pure racism. And I'm not, one to jump up and down and declare racism, but this was so racist. It was embarrassing for me as a U.S. citizen to see my government do something like that. So I'm a big fan of Veritasium, and I think everybody who wants to see free markets like Reggie does should take a little look at Veri.
Yeah. And then in the meantime, take a little look at the roadtoruta.com. And if you become
not at YouTube.
No, not on YouTube. I dropped the Rumble channel earlier. Let me bring the link down to your Rumble channel.
YouTube pulled a YouTube move and gave me my 2nd strike. So I'm not even going to touch YouTube until mid-February when the 1st strike is gone. But they can shut you down at any moment.
They'll find one. They would do that, and then they'd go back and find a 2-year-old video. Oh yeah,
they've done that.
Another strike. Now you're gone.
I've locked channels without any strikes, without any warnings, by the way. So they can do whatever the hell they want.
It's like the IRS. It's like the IRS. They can do whatever they want. It doesn't matter what the law says. They can do whatever they want.
And they do.
Penny, let me bring up your website also. What's coming up here on pennykelly.com?
Well, everything that I'm doing is in the background, so there's not a whole lot I can say. I continue with Patreon. Love the Patreon people. They are amazing people. I continue to tiptoe through the tulips around YouTube and, put stuff up on Odyssey, a lot of places, a lot of podcasts, etc. But the big focus that I have is I've been converting The Elves of Lily Hill Farm, which was one of the first books I got published. I never had the manuscript for it, and so I wanted to put that up on my website. I had to retype the whole thing and do typesetting and all that. So that's about ready to go up on my website. Should be up in the next week. And then the big focus is on the school. My classes and getting those up. That'll probably take me the rest of the year.
Okay.
So yeah,
a lot of work ahead of you. So please, guys, go support Penny here at pennykelly.com. If you haven't already, at least read the robes. This is the book that will set you into this frequency here, and perhaps after that, the Consciousness on Fire books here. Which one are those?
Yeah, Consciousness 1, 2, and 3.
Yes, exactly. So check it out. And also you can support Penny here at pennykelly.com. Sorry, patreon.com/Penny Kelly. And Joe, how about you? What's new? What's going on? Are you going treasure hunting? What's going on with your
Not yet.
Not yet?
Yep, not treasure hunting yet, but I'm trying to get something going this year. I went last year for a little bit, but we went when I got the took the helicopter up for the first time. So I was mostly wanting to go check out places that we couldn't really check out on foot.
Yeah.
And like I said, I found that interesting ancient city looking thing, whatever those things are, and just a few other things. So we kind of got sidetracked and didn't actually go to treasure hunt per se. But I'm wanting to get back on our spot, you know, me, you, and Dave's spot, and get something done this year, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Laura's asking, hey, just to make sure, is Woo Woo Dude all right? I know a couple of weeks ago he was sick.
Yeah, he's fine. He's totally fine.
But what happened tonight, just so people know he's okay there?
Yeah, he had other plans that he'd already made. Yeah, he couldn't be home. He couldn't be home. So
perfect. And Joe, for people who want to get into crypto and they need a little bit of help in the community, maybe a little bit of one-on-one help, what do you have for them here on your Patreon?
Yeah, we got the JSNIP4 crypto woo-woo, $20 a month. That's the main deal I got, where I put my woo-woo dreams and crypto things. And I mean, just for example, you know, woo-woo dude will call every now and then. Oh, I think Spirit just gave me something. He was just telling us November 25th, hey, they're all over my ass again about getting some Shiba. And I go, okay, let me post this on Patreon. So I tell everybody, and you know, usually when he gives it, it's pretty quick. Like it's gonna be a couple, 2-3 weeks, and it's like it happens. It's just always my experience with him. And it was January when it hit, and it went up. How much did Shiba? 40%. It was up, topped out about 40%. You know, like there's another one, but he'll give me something. Sometimes I'll get a dream on a crypto. I'll post it there.
Wasn't that how you bought the helicopter? It was Shiba, no?
He called and said, Shiba, Spirit's telling me Shiba. And I'm like, okay, if I can get 50% profit, I'm going to get this helicopter with this Shiba trade. Well, next thing I know, it's up 100%. So I'm like, wow, I just took 50% of the profit, bought the helicopter, kept the other 50%, and on the side, and it starts going down. I'm buying Shiba as it's falling to get it all back. I was like, this is incredible. So I'll post stuff like that on Patreon. I will say this. So, you know, Spirit will give you all kinds of different confirmations a lot of times in different ways. Yeah. My biggest one is in my dreams. And I got this dream in September telling me in a couple months the market's going to crash, crypto. And there was this second part of the dream about 6 winters. And I go, what the hell does 6 winters mean? And the whole time my wife was in the dream telling me everything about everything that happened. And I asked her, well, how did cryptos do? And she goes, well, you don't want to know. And I'm like, no, I do want to know. If I've been gone for 6 winters, you had to survive somehow. I had crypto, so you must have sold it or done something. What did the market do? And she goes, well, it was bad. It was real bad. And I go, oh. So she mentioned that she gave up on me in 2 months. So I go, okay, I wake up and I'm trying to put it together. And I go, okay, I think we're going to crash in 2 months. And then there's something about these 6 winters. I got to figure that one out. So sure enough, November comes, FTX crash, boom, crypto markets dump. And I go, okay, so I got my interpretation right. I go, what about the other part? So I look online, and it was about the 6 winters. And there's this one article that this person wrote about in Tennessee. If there's a cold snap in January and another one February, another March, April, May, up until June, each month has this cold snap. They call it a certain winter for each month, but then they recognize it as the 6 little winters. And as I'm reading it, I go, oh, this is it. But what is the information though? And I go, well, it's either 6 months from November is maybe this lull, then we hit another bottom, we crash one more time, and then it's over. Or maybe it's literally the 6 little winters, January, February, March, April, May, June. So I posted this. I'm talking to Paige, this was back in September. So I've been asking recently, is that it? Or like, are we definitely still crashing? Because I thought these numbers I was given haven't happened yet. And I got a dream telling me, yes, it's coming still. So you just posted that thing about the Oregon creator thing that had 6 sides. Yeah. And it was the winter one in capital letters, winter. So you put on the screen, I go, winter, hex, which is 6 winters. I go, come on, man. I mean, immediately I go, how many sides is on there? Oh, it's a hex thing.
Okay, Joe, you got to go and buy that pyramid now. You can come on, man.
Jeez,
it's calling your name, Joe. Come on.
So, anyways,
and use
the 6 little winters. There it is. Get a little discount. So I had to just say that because, like, I just that when as you were saying it, it was already talking to me. I go, okay, this is double confirmation. Like, it's coming. Hold tight. This little rally, it's a head fake. Don't get caught. This little bull. It's not no bull market. I'm telling you, I think it's a head fake.
May 13th.
I love it. So guys, check out patreon.com/JSNIP4. Hey, and before we go too, I want to invite you guys on February 1st to our very first monthly full moon singing bowl meditation. This is a brand new product. You can find it on maisonjupiter.com. Julie is putting this together here with all of our amazing teams. And of course, Janine's going to be there to read some cards, set some intentions here for this amazing meditation. Elena did her first weekly meditation here on YouTube today. Go check out those comments, absolutely through the roof. She's so amazing and so loving. But this one here is going to be the big one. Focus on the Leo full moon, and we'll be activating the solar plexus and the heart chakra through this meditation with the singing bowls here. Absolutely going to be fun. Please join us there at maisonjupiter.com. And last but not least, also please check out the Beyond Crypto Woo we just posted earlier today if you want to navigate a little bit more here through the world of crypto, gold, and silver. And also, if you're wanting to have a little bit more of an understanding about how all of these astrological alignments are going to be affecting you here for the month of February, including the introduction of Pluto here into this age of Aquarius and the destruction of all of those old systems, please check out the Astro Woo Finance here. We've cut them up in 12 individual zodiac signs for you to better find your navigational footing here in all of this crazy wacky woo world of ours. I'm Jean-Claude BeyondMystic. This was the wacky woo. Merci beaucoup, Joe. Merci, Penny.
1 second,
merci, Cliff. Merci, Bix. Yes, Joe.
Penny said May 13th. What were you talking about? Is that when you get a crash for crypto coming in your look-see?
I keep getting this message. Get ready for May 13th. I looked it up today.
Crypto or just something, anything?
It was for financial. I didn't know what that meant. In fact, I was going to kind of ask and say, is Cliffy saying anything about May? Because he's pretty good with those kinds of predictions.
He's not that far out yet in the latest reports. He was talking about February and March. I don't think he's looked that far out of May. I think granularity stops at around the maybe 3-month mark at the furthest out of his range there. Yeah.
Well, we'll see what happens. I looked it up today, and the 13th is Friday the 13th in May.
There you go.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the bottom, and then June we're at the 6th little winter, and then off we go.
Yeah, there we go.
Crazy.
Get your bags ready to be filled.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us here tonight on this live interactive show. Please go share the love and find Bix there on Rumble. You can find him at Road to Ruta there. Go subscribe to Joe on YouTube and also at Penny Kelly on YouTube. I love you guys. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
You guys.
Hasta pronto.